Hello and welcome to another episode of Q&A. Today we're joined by Kumar and Nivas, both product managers for the Marvis self-driving solution at HPE. And after Mobility Field Day, we're here to talk about the latest innovations and the journey on the self-driving network. Kumar, Nivas, welcome. Maybe give the audience a little bit of introduction on how you got here.
Yeah, myself, Kumar Kodaswamy. I have been the product management director with HPE, and I've been with Juniper Mist HPE 6 years working on the Marvis product management.
Hey Bob, great to be here today. So I'm part of the AI Ops team here at HPE, and really excited to take the vision of self-driving forward. In the past, I've worked in Kubernetes and some other data center related aspects. So I'm really excited to bring all the new innovations to HPE networking.
Yeah, so Kumar, maybe we'll start with you. But I know Mobility Field Day is always a big day for the HPE Juniper Mist team. Latest innovations. What got you most excited about the Mobility Field Day this year?
This year, we were kind of very keen on tying all the aspects of Marvis, which is like Marvis Minis. We have large experience model, and then we have Marvis conversational interface, and then the Marvis actions. All of them, instead of them being in a separate swim lanes, how do they all tie together? We were mainly able to focus on that and showcase the innovation where how do each of this tie to each, how do each of this tie together, so that way like customer can use them and then can get the most out of it actually.
Maybe we'll start with, I know Marvis Minis is kind of like the latest innovation in the area of data. Maybe a little bit more description on what does Marvis Minis really bring to the table? How's it helping customers actually self-drive?
Yeah, definitely right. So in the world of self-driving, you need something like feet on the ground, which can do like a pre and post validation. And Minis is our feet on the ground for doing the pre and post validation in terms of all the network services, right? Whether it's respect to DHCP or DNS or the application reachability itself. So Minis acts as this pre-validator and as well as a post-validator once you self-drive that particular action. So that's why like Minis now is no more just a data source coming into the cloud, but it also acts as like whenever something is bringing up in your network, Marvis says, hey Minis, can you go and validate this for me and come back? It comes back with the real data as to like, is it a real issue? If so, self-drive it. And then once you self-drive, did that self-driving action make sense? Did it go kind of solve the problem? Minis does do a post-validation of that.
Yeah, I was watching Mobility Field Day. I mean, it looks like Minis was kind of this digital synthetic user living in the infrastructure. I mean, I even saw like it looked like a Minis SLE. Now you're actually using Minis as a proxy for the actual
Yes,
network
thank you,
users.
right? So just throwing a little more kind of details around that. So Minis has like two, three different use cases, right? First off, let's say if I'm a vendor, I'm just cutting over from a different, and like a customer cutting over from a different vendor. As I do that, not all of my users may be on the floor. Minis acts as just digital fin, where it kind of gives you, tries to do what an actual result are done on the floor, trying to isolate the network and provides the data. So that way, within couple of clicks, right, on that mini facility that you mentioned, we'll be able to immediately get to the problem as to like there is a problem. Is it the entire site switch or is it specific the sections of the switch or the access point management? Will be within like 2 clicks, right? You'll be there much earlier in the night as the cutover is being done, so that way users don't suffer when they kind of walk in the morning. So that's where like Minis is powerful, where it can now do like your pre-validation during the cutover, and it can do the pre-validation and post-validation after the cutover as well throughout the year as the network continues to operate.
Okay, so we got this in Minis digital user now. We're bringing more data back into it has its own little service level experience metric. And then we have this large experience model I heard about. How does Minis help the large experience model and close that loop you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, large experience model, like we mentioned, Minis is our kind of feet on the ground for all the pre-validation. Large experience model, and we are the only vendor out there, right? These are like feet on the ground for post-validation of any post-connect applications, right? Such as like, hey, as a user, I've been able to connect to the network. Now what, right? I'm trying to do a Teams call, Zoom call, or I've been accessing a particular application. How will that experience is? Large experience model kind of keeps a track of that, right? Anything that I self-drive, I kind of change, make any change to the network around that area. Do it kind of turn it out into a positive change or a negative change? We'll be able to get that.
Actually, I'm reminded of a song by Pink Floyd. It's because many times we are all on Zoom calls, Team calls all day. That's how collaboration works. You heard about the song. It says, "You're coming through in waves. Your lips move. I can't hear what you're saying." Again, I can't sing as good as David Gilmour or Roger Waters, but that experience is how many times have we felt comfortably numb in Zoom calls or team calls just because somebody's saying I can't hear, or the audio is not coming through, the video is choppy. And that's what we want to avoid, right? We want a network that continually learns the applications are having issues, and then correlating that to what are the exact network issues that are causing it. And that's what the large experience model, and we are also have extended this to self-driving actions. So we're actually doubling the number of self-driving actions actually essentially, and a couple of them are essentially focused on this dynamism. As in, we took up a typical wireless network today is very dynamic. People are coming in, people are going in. There are conference rooms happening. There are, the crowds are forming. People are returning in Teams, Zoom. So but then the problem is that traditional wireless network, they still use static RF profiles. They, like these are the band you're gonna use. This is how much bandwidth you're gonna use. This is how much power you're gonna set. But that doesn't work in the dynamic environment we work today. And that's why we have a new self-driving action called dynamic capacity optimization, which will dynamically look at the patterns. Okay, how is the usage? Which access points are having capacity constraints? And it will dynamically adjust it. And that's the and using the power of AI, we're going to continually tune and adjust to make sure that we are not feeling comfortably numb with this.
Just as an example to what Nivas mentioned, right? Dynamic capacity optimization, this is pretty much applicable into multiple verticals, right? So, for example, in higher ed, students first week of semester, second week, third week of semesters, a lot of students show up in class, and then it slowly tapers down, right? Then they only show up towards the end of the semester for their exams, right? So if you're not looking at that data as to like, hey, now most students are coming back into the classrooms, will you be able to support your applications, whether it's your application that kind of students takes the exam on, or if it's a Zoom kind of application, right? So this is where like the system, Marvis, along with the NIST IRM, right, is able to take a look and see like, hey, do I need to completely auto cancel 2.4 and turn in on an additional 60 Hz radio, so that way like people have more options to connect to, and then will it support the entire bandwidth, right? So these are some of the things where like to your original point, right? No more is like all these systems are discrete. They are all connected in the sense like anytime somebody changes something on the network, Minis does a pre-connect validation, and then LAM is our post-connect validation of like how well things are working fine.
Now for the audience, in full transparency, I was co-founder at MIS, been on this self-driving journey for a while.
Yeah.
How do customers really know what is a fully self-driving action versus not going forward? Where are we on this journey to self-driving? We really brought the Waymo self-driving experience to networking?
Yeah, so let me just start on that, Nivas, a little bit, and then you can take off, right? So because Nivas heads our entire self-driving now, but I'll just as a kind of little starter, right? So the way to identify is quite simple. We have our Marvis Actions dashboard, wherein you have a self-driving icon around Marvis. Any action that has a self-driving actions around that, the steering wheel around that Marvis icon, next to it is a fully self-driving actions, right? And then why don't...
Yeah, and for example, the other one more fully self-driving action that we have right now again is the DFS optimization. So here again, traditionally with 5 gigahertz you have 20 channels, right? But out of that 16 could potentially have radar. So traditionally we have operators essentially operating networks in some ways that I call them as DJs. DJs, they had bass, treble, equalizers, settings. So they set these manually and then they walk away, versus we need a network that's more intelligent, that's automatically adjusting to the real traffic patterns and really what's happening. So for example, we have the DFS optimization automatically look at what's the radar pattern in the last few weeks, and then automatically look at which channels I should use, which I should eliminate, and it's automatically tuning, adjusting, learning.
So okay, so so it sounds like we got Marvis here trying to help you figure out how to keep all your radio resource management optimized for that user experience. The other thing I hear from customers all the time is, how about if I don't trust Marvis? where's the human in the loop in this discussion? Where does a human decide when to put the action on the trust list, or does Marvis make that decision?
So I think we have both in the sense like, let's say on the actions, right? So in the trust list, one is like your portion of the simple answer is we can always turn it off if you don't trust that, even though we are default self-driving for some of the sections. Right? That's one way out. And before you do that, there is an Ask Marvis that he has done, wherein when you click an action, as it shows the evidence, there's an Ask Marvis where if you click that, it kind of goes into the detail of that, right? So, and then after taking a look at on the details that it is answering, like how did it arrive at that? Despite that, if somebody wants to turn off, this trust list is where you can toggle it back at a given site level, where you have like, hey, this is a site where I don't want certain things to be self-driven. You can always turn it off for the site, or you can always start the other way around, where I'll turn on for a site and then slowly I'll expand it to the entire route, right?
Okay, well, the customer is still out of control of what goes on the what Marvis drives and doesn't drive. Sounds
That is
Right. So you can start small and you could, expand it as you get more confidence. And as Kumar mentioned, some of these models, they again are built by engineers and they have very complex equations and they can be really hard to explain. And that's where the Ask Marvis feature is really good, because we are using a conversational interface to explain in simple language, okay, what this action does, and what are the parameters it's looking at, what is going to change, how the experience is going to look like, so you get even more confidence in terms of the operators. They get a natural language experience of, okay, this is what it's doing. So versus because some of these models can be complicated underneath, but we want to simplify the experience.
That's a good question, because maybe I know Marvis has had a natural language interface since 2018. Hello, Kumar. How did agentic AI? We all know the agentic AI is here now. How did agentic AI really change that Marvis conversational interface?
Yeah, I think so. To be honest, 2022 when OpenAI came up with the large language model, right? So that started changing in terms of Gen AI answers was kind of initially used in like documentation, summarization as such, and then last 2 years we have been working very effectively with the teams using the LLMs or the SLMs in arriving at looking into all of the parameters and arriving to the different answers. Yeah. So that way, net, to be honest, now with this LLM the way that it is progressing, it has brought back our push cycles, especially around Marvis conversational interface and agentic AI. We are now back to like a weekly push cycle, right? Pretty much like teams as they innovate, as they course correct, right? So we're able to make changes and push it back to for the customers use every week, right? So we are now back to our weekly pushes in terms of Marvis also.
Okay, but even my kids are starting to build agentic AI demos. Seem like within a day or two, this is pretty straightforward. What are you doing to really make sure the Marvis self-driving actions have high efficacy? It's relatively easy to do an agentic demo. It's a little bit harder to actually make sure that you get no hallucinations and you actually get something that's 90% accurate.
Yeah, I think just to kind of add colors around that, right? So every ticket that comes into the HPE, right? So pretty much like all the SMEs who are like our customer support, and then our like system engineers, plus like product managers, right? We all do get text messages, and then over is free. Obviously, support does look at it, but apart from that, the SAs, who are some of the SMEs are top there, plus the product managers, if you are free, you go take a look at the data, snap it, you kind of put it into Marvis, right? And then like Marvis also, as the ticket comes in, it snaps an answers of like what's the status quo during that time. That is rated day in, day out as to like how close was it to the answer, right? Could the ticket been just deflected just by kind of looking at that answer? So this constant endeavor of going and kind of marking the ticket back to like how well is it answering whether it could be a simple question or whether it could be like a ticket that is coming in saying like, hey, certain users are not able to connect.
So your own support team is as they say, eat your own dog food, drink your own champagne here.
Yes.
And you're bringing that goodness back into the product, it sounds like.
So before we get like a earful from our customer, we do get it from our support itself, because if our support is not able to arrive at better answers, they do flag it back saying like, hey, this kind of new set of problems that are coming out in the field, or this set of questions or debug sessions, the Marvis are not being able to answer good. So there's a constant endeavor and a constant closed loop that we run between our support team engineering team, and then the product manager. This is a close loop.
Yeah, maybe I'll go to you. What is the best customer story you've heard, self-driving story you've heard so far?
So there are two of them, right? So one with respect to dynamic capacity optimization. So I'll let Nivas do that with one of our enterprise HQ, like how they were able to utilize that. The other one is like a rogue DHCP server, right? Rogue DHCP server, as much as simple it might sound. So one of our network, one of our engineers in our enterprise, right? So they were trying to test a few things in their core network. This guy thought like, hey, let me extend the network a little bit to debug something. He kind of opened up a port, just an access VLAN, native VLAN, right? Just plugged the Netgear router, not knowing that that Netgear router is now serving DHCP, and then that DHCP route default became a default route for that segment of the core, but the entire core and everything associated with that's down, right? So now with rogue DHCP, pretty much anytime, like any device that is plugged into a network which is doing DHCP, it kind of automatically starts stopping the packet and shuts that port. That may like this issue of like, hey, somebody just plugged in a port with a new device to extend network, and that kind of bringing down your network, or at least kind of causing blackpooling of certain users. That's like a thing of the past for us, right? So that's like in the recent, like a month ago, as we put it into the production. So the customer kind of got back to us and said like, hey, this rogue DHCP is game changing, and specifically it's game changing in higher ed, right? Higher ed in residential hall dorm rooms, this happens all the time, right? People plug in their devices, and then many of them could be serving DHCP, and then it's always better to drop and then shut that port unless it's very much required.
Okay, now I've always asked, have you done the Waymo Uber self-driving experience yet?
Yes.
How close are we getting to having a Waymo self-driving networking experience before I retire? Is that going to happen?
We are very, very close to that, and well, I would say actually, like I said, we expanded our self-driving, and we plan to expand even more, and also expand to more like agentic type approaches as well. But thus far, at least on the wireless side and even some of the networking use cases, we want to get away from people manually operating and setting these devices. We want a network that fully learns and fully understands the traffic patterns, like
I don't know if you answered my question, Nivas. Before I retire.
Yes, it will happen. Yeah. And then two things I can vouch for the right, Bob. So we are the only network vendor where Marvis kind of keeps the punches of the network. It understands what's happening on the network, right, and can react to that. And that way, like customers now, the ticket comes in as to like, why do you not shut a port, either for our port step or rogue DHCP, versus like the untrust part of like, why did you do that? It's more the other way around, where people are asking like, hey, we trusted this used to take care of the problem automatically. What happened, right? Why did we not do this? So we are almost there. And then to your point, yes, pretty much in next 1 year, we have a goal of like completing all the self-driving actions that can be self-driven. To the matter whether it's like semi self-driven or full self-driven, we'll complete the whole.
Sounds like it may happen. So do you have to wrap it up? Favorite self-driving action?
For me, it was the dynamic capacity optimization. I think that is probably my favorite. And again, like, because you've seen, for example, customers who have enterprises that have their employees coming in, coming out, they have different work from home policies, or they want to bring them back to the office, and people traveling and and that self-learning and automatically adjusting, to me that sounded very much like my Bose music system, that automatically adjusting to what kind of music I'm listening, rather than me tweaking the bass and treble and the equalizer options. So we want to get away. So that to me was my favorite.
Okay, yeah, I do wine, so a lot more wine analogy than music analogy. Kumar, favorite MFD innovation?
I think for us, the favorite one was tying in all of these minis being pre and post validation for pre-connection, and then the LEM being able to the measure to be able to be the measure of like the post connection self-driving actions, right? So that way, like, see, for any self-driving, right, it's very key to like have the feet on the ground. I remember traveling 10 years ago to customer places where, as the changes are being done, I'm with my laptop walking around the access points, trying to measure like, am I able to connect? Am I able to access that particular application? Now with minis being that pre-connection, pre and post connection validation, and then the LAN is able to do the same without anybody being shipped to the site itself, right? Either from customer side or on our side. We don't have to go manually into the site checking this. So we have come like a full circle of life here, right? Where yes, we have self-driving action, and every time we self-drive, we also have a feet on the ground to do a pre and post measure, right? That's like the key biggest thing about this MFT, where we have been kind of working towards this diligently for last 2-3 years, and then we have now come a full circle where we have been able to tie this entire like in single piece, as to like every time I self-drive, I have like evidence pre and post, whether it's pre-connect or post-connect. So that's the biggest thing for today.
Well, Kumar, Nivas, I want to thank you for joining us today. For the audience, if you want to see the latest innovations on self-driving, check out the latest episode on Mobility Field Day 14, and you'll see where we are on the journey to self-driving. With that, look forward to seeing you on the next episode.